This is BSS Sports.
Fires to the end zone. It's Lewis. It's Greg Lewis. Touchdown.
Brooks with one. Lets it fly at the horn. It's gone.
Here's Crosby with a burst of speed up the middle. Gets open and scores.
A grand slam for A-Rod.
Pure genius from David Beckham.
It's in. Thierry Henry with a bullet.
With Thomas Brooks, Steve Shields, and Trevor Struthers. Only on 91X.
It is January 18th, 2016. Another episode of BSS Sports shall be in the books in a mere 15 minutes. And probably the most important thing about the day is that three teams that are animals are making to the NFL Conference Championships, except for the Patriots. Going to go look over each of the games over the weekend. We're here with Trevor. The Patriots, they're one of the teams that everybody seems to not be able to count out.
Well, yeah, and I think it has to start with good coaching, obviously, and then it goes over to the fact that Tom Brady is arguably one of the best quarterbacks from a stats perspective ever.
Is Bill Belichick the best coach ever?
He's up there for sure. Another Super Bowl wouldn't hurt, and he's inching pretty close to that possibility.
All right, so over the weekend we saw the Patriots take on the Chiefs, won 27-20. The Panthers 31-0 in the first half. I turned off the game. I thought the Seahawks were completely done and out, and then they came back, 24 points, still lost, but damn. They had quite the effort. The Packers and Cardinals games was probably the most interesting of the weekend just because of how everything went. The overtime, the coin flip that didn't flip, and everything that happened there. Aaron Rodgers with that really long toss-up. I'm not sure the correct words for that because he's done it twice in one season. And is Aaron Rodgers starting to get into the conversation with Tom Brady about the best quarterback ever?
He's there, I guess. I would look at him more than I would like a Drew Brees, but also, I mean, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, who we're going to see play in an upcoming game. Peyton Manning, I have a feeling, is kind of closer to Tom Brady than an Aaron Rodgers would be. But, I mean, if Aaron Rodgers finds a bit more success, and something Rodgers is missing out on is the championships that Tom Brady has, then maybe it's a bit of a different tune in the future.
It's pretty wild to see that Larry Fitzgerald is still doing amazing things. That final play, Carson Palmer, who recently left the Cincinnati Bengals, and as soon as you leave the Bengals, you win a playoff game. Ended up going 70 yards, stiff arms the guy, just runs up the field, looking tired. I'm surprised nobody was able to catch him, but it was in overtime. But the thing with overtime is that it's essentially decided by a coin flip. Sure, this helps put emphasis on acquiring a good defense, but in the NFL, how it works is the coin flip happens if you win it. If you get a touchdown with your possession, you win the game. If you get a field goal or if you don't score, then the other team gets possession. Is this a stupid way of having it, or should they change it?
I think it's the NFL's quick fix on just trying to get the game to end quickly in overtime and not have it drag on too long. If that, if the first team that has the ball scores a touchdown, then the game's over and we move on. I do think it's in a way it's unfair because you're not leaving the game necessarily up to skill when it gets to that point. It's almost up to a coin toss.
Should it be changed in the playoffs, though?
Should it change in the playoffs? I could see why you would do it. I mean, there's a reason the NHL doesn't do a shootout in the playoffs. And you could kind of argue the same thing. You could maybe work out some rules so maybe it's a stat that determines who even gets first possession in overtime, a stat from the game instead of a coin flip or something like that.
Cam Newton is on fire this year. I mean, he's ticking off people left, right, and center. He's got the haters. He's got the lovers. Do you think that the Panthers are the team to beat in this Final Four?
It almost seems like that, but as long as the Patriots are around, they almost kind of scream as that team that you either hate them or you like them, the Patriots, right? And there's a lot of people that don't like them. And
it's the same with the Bruins. It's the whole Boston thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I hate Boston sports teams, the Red Sox, the Bruins, the Patriots, and I know I'm not alone. So yeah, I mean, the Patriots are always kind of looked upon as that team that you got to beat until they're out. But the Panthers are probably, I think it's safe to say, with the regular season, they had the best team in the NFL, and they're maybe going to be the hardest to knock out.
Okay, so moving over to the NHL, I don't really know where to start with this one, but we have John Scott, who, if you've ever seen the TV show Fringe, which is on Netflix, there's a character in it that's the bad guy, and his name is John Scott. And that movie was around before John Scott was an all-star, but now John Scott is an all-star. Trevor, what's your take of the shenanigans going on right now?
I don't know what originally started this whole kind of NHL fan kind of motive to get John Scott into the All-Star game. It'll be interesting to see what the NHL does to kind of fix things in terms of future years and trying to make sure somebody like a John Scott maybe isn't on the ballot. John Scott's I don't know. I almost feel bad for the guy because he's almost become a joke out of all this, and it's not his fault. He shouldn't be in the NHL, but he's not giving himself a job in the NHL. Other people are.
The thing with John Scott is, if you don't know, essentially he's a guy who is more of a tough guy. I believe he's like 6'7" something. He's like Zdeno Chara, but like not that great of a hockey player. He's an enforcer. And then social media decided to put him in the All-Star game, and then they succeeded. And now the NHL apparently told him that they didn't want him to be in the game, even though technically doesn't this give the All-Star game some kind of life, having the 3-on-3 format, but one of those three being kind of a Joe Schmo?
It's interesting.
Because it gives it life, other than, just the guys going there to play whatever, rack up the score, and it be more or less unentertaining.
I'm kind of intrigued to watch it just to see how the whole 3-on-3 thing plays out, especially with an older guy like Yager in the game. But with John Scott, I don't know if that necessarily draws attention to it for the right reasons.
But it makes it, okay, sure, you could say that it's bringing up the whole pop culture with it, but having a guy that's more of a tough guy, and like I agree, he's probably not the best guy to put in the game no matter what, but when you're having something that's 3-on-3, you have a guy that would, in no other circumstances, be able to make the All-Star team get there. It gives it publicity. It gives it something people to talk about. Going to the game, wouldn't that be hilarious to see John Scott trying to face a bunch of All-Stars?
I guess to a certain point it would be, but it's just kind of crazy to think that, first off, if he wasn't traded and he was in the All-Star game, he would have been the only player from the Arizona Coyotes in the All-Star game, and they're in a playoff spot right about now. So, they have other guys that deserve to be there. And Sidney Crosby, he's not an All-Star, and John Scott he was voted into the All-Star game. It's just, and sure, Crosby had a slow start, but he's Sidney Crosby. He's revered as one of the best players in the game, even if he's off to a slow start. And it just doesn't seem right that even if the fans did it, that John Scott's an All-Star.
Okay, so if every team has to have an All-Star in the All-Star game, and John Scott was it for Arizona, does it get replaced, or does Arizona just not have anybody now?
I believe they're going to send somebody from Arizona.
Max Domi. I vote Max Domi.
I think it'll be Ekman Larson.
Dang flabbit. Baseball. Them Toronto Blue Jays. A little bit of a heartache now that we know that Anthopoulos is with the Dodgers, but we heard some other news coming out last week about a little trade.
Yeah, the Blue Jays picked up Drew Storen from the Washington Nationals for essentially Ben Revere. And I was a little surprised because reviews, at least right when it happened, were pretty mixed as to the trade. And I guess that happens after a team, like the Blue Jays has success after, such, 20 years of not making the playoffs, right? And so, even though they didn't win a championship, there's this mantra that with a championship team that the fans start to fall in love with the players, and they want that team to be together all the time. And the Blue Jays didn't win a championship last year, but they came close. They went to Game 6 of the ALCS, obviously the farthest they've gone in 20 years. And there's obviously this connection. And Revere's a great guy. He seems like a great guy in the clubhouse for whatever that's worth, and just a great person to talk to. But what this trade does is it helps the Blue Jays on the field, which is where it matters most. And if you're upset about them losing a David Price, or going out and bringing in Jay Happ and hoping that Jay Happ can produce in the rotation this year, then you should be happy with this trade, because the Blue Jays went out and helped out their bullpen with this trade. Left field moving forward, it should be taken care of with Michael Saunders. I don't know how the health thing will play out. He was supposed to be the left fielder last year. That didn't go to plan. But they do have maybe some other options. The other option other than Saunders that looks at you right now is Dalton Pompey. And he is very similar to Ben Revere in terms of skill set, except he doesn't hit for a 300 average, though he may walk a bit more than Revere. I don't know. His walking numbers will be interesting. But, I like Pompey personally. I want Pompey to be my fourth outfielder and Saunders to be my left fielder.
I have this really weird and eerie feeling. I don't know if it's just because Rogers owns the Jays and we've seen, not really much success on the whole way of spending in the past couple of years, but I have a weird feeling that this is the last year they're going to try to go for it. But if they don't make it this year, we're going in the rebuild stage. Can I get your thoughts on that one?
Well, it all depends on what happens on the contract front with Bautista and Encarnacion. I mean, moving on beyond this upcoming year, I believe you still have Tulowitzki, you'll have Donaldson, you'll have those pieces. You have some younger guys that I could see it doing that with. I mean, Osuna's still going to be there for a while. You hope the same for Stroman and Sanchez. They have control over those guys for like the next 5 years at least. So it'd be interesting to see what kind of happens. But before we can kind of make any kind of decision on where you think they're going in the future. I mean, obviously, if they re-sign Bautista and Edwin somehow, then they're going to keep trying to have success and go for a championship. But if they're not able to re-sign those guys, and especially to the point where we see them maybe moved for some younger players, then it looks like they could be going into that rebuilding stage.
Okay, good point. I want to switch over to basketball for a minute because I know last week we had a bit of a quarrel with the whole Kobe Bryant thing. And look, I get that he wants to stay with the Lakers and everything, but hypothetically speaking, would it make sense for the Lakers to trade Kobe? Could you get anything for Kobe other than mere ticket sales?
I don't really think you can, to be honest. His talents have diminished. There's no denying that from what he was in his prime. But, I mean, I just don't think you could really get much for him. I mean, I think if he goes to a team that's looking to contend, and that's the only kind of team that's going to trade for a Kobe Bryant, unless a team solely wants to maybe help their ticket buys, he's maybe some sort of player that comes off the bench. He's certainly not a starter, right? So,
but he's starting a lot.
Yeah, on a team that's not very good, though. So,
they only won 9 games.
But if he's on a good team, he's going to be on the bench. And it's just kind of how much will Kobe Bryant be able to accept a role where he's not starting? That's a question in and of itself that you really have to ask before considering trading him. I don't think he goes anywhere.
If you were Kobe, though, wouldn't you want to be traded to go for another championship? Or is it just fine that you're, going on your retirement after just taking the Lakers for a ride and taking all the money from them that you possibly could, even though you're injured and you're not doing anything?
I've never lived in Los Angeles, but I'm going to assume that it's a pretty fun place to live and to play basketball. And, maybe this is me playing too much into what I think Kobe's ego is, but for a championship, I almost feel like it's been there, done that, and he'd rather start, till the season's over and until he retires, instead of going to a contending team for a chance to win a championship, but come off the bench. At least with the starting thing, it's pretty much a guarantee.
Now, with the whole championship talk that you're, talking about over there, we got the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference who are 28-10. And then in the Western Conference, you have the Golden State Warriors who are 37-4. And arguably, which is a very strong argument, the Western Conference is a lot stronger than the Eastern Conference. Mm-hmm. Does that put the Western Conference as a guarantee to win the championship?
I don't think it ever does. But if you ask me today, who do I think is the favorite to win the championship? I think if you asked anybody, they'd pretty much tell you Golden State. And it's a team that's lost 4 times all year. Can they lose 4 times in one series? Right now, it doesn't look so. So I think Golden State right now has to be the favorite. But, I don't know. There's almost this debate that it almost helps to be in the Eastern Conference because the playoffs can be such a grind. Whatever team comes out of the West could be pretty beat up, could be pretty knocked around. Golden State, San Antonio, no matter who it is, could be knocked around by that other team.
And the thing that should be brought up is the San Antonio Spurs are 24-0 at home, and they've played 2 more games than the Warriors, so they have 2 more losses, but technically they're about on par with Golden State. So you could see the Spurs or Warriors going to the championship, but then you got the Thunder and the Clippers right behind them. But in the Eastern Conference, the Raptors, they're second place. Are we getting confident that we're going to make it past the first round here?
It's an interesting thing, and really we can only wait till wait and see what happens, because there was a chance maybe last year that they could have won that series against the Wizards. That went horribly. Then there was the year before that where it was a legit possibility, and people were legit excited about not necessarily contending for a championship, but at least winning a series. And it came down to the last possession in Game 7 at home. So, I mean, I think there's a possibility of them going beyond the first round. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but we can only wait and see what happens.
I really hope the Milwaukee Bucks make it, because I want to see my man, Michael Carter-Williams, take home the championship. All right, so that's it for this episode of BSS Sports. Some cool news. We're out on YouTube now. If you type in BSS Productions, you'll find our videos. We're going to start archiving them. So if you want to check it out anytime, anywhere in a video format, even though will just be a solid image, check us out on there. We're also on Twitter and Facebook at BSS Sports. We'll catch you next